Hello, my name's Harry, also known as Dramatic Drummer 03 on the internet, and I am a drummer, guitarist, and occasionally a piano player. I'm in several projects, everything from post-hardcore stuff to shoegaze things to Midwest emo, and I'm in two projects as a drummer right now, and I have my own solo project where I do guitar stuff. So I was inspired by friends of mine to build a board, and I really got super deep into it over the last almost a year now. This is the board it feels like it's all been leading up to this, but it does everything I need to right now, and I'm really happy with it. The amp I'm using is it's a digital Fender amp. It's the GTX 100. Fantastic amp because it actually has XLR outputs for DI. And when I say outputs, I mean two, because it's stereo. There's some stereo processing that it can do, which is incredible. And I bought this before I knew what most of that stuff was, so I'm really happy about that. It's also got a foot switcher here, as you can see. I've got another camera. I'm doing a dual camera setup. It's cool. It's really cool. But I'm really happy with it. It has amp, head, and cab simulation. So I've had a really fun time digging into that and finding what I like. Of course, I'll go more into that later. I guess we should start with the amp first, since the amp is kind of a part of the board. I've got a GTX 7. It's just the foot switcher. It's a little crazier than most foot switchers because you can switch through like pedals that are in the amp as well as presets, amp settings, using that. So it kind of has to go on the board. Honestly, you could set up like a little shoegaze pedal board on there, which is what I did for a long time. I have an album called War, and a lot of that was just going through those pedals. I ended up getting, the Loomer Fuzz, the crayon here, some more things to kind of help pad it out, but a lot of it was just using internal stuff in the amp itself, which worked great. I basically, on the presets, I choose my amp, 1 of 5. I have these, can you see my hand? Yeah, you can. I've got these 5 here to choose from, and I've set those up for amp types, and then once I'll pick an amp for a song, and then I use the mode to cycle down to effects, and then I can choose my effects. And so I've labeled them, and they're the same for every amp I have. I have the same 4 effects. Other than that, it also is my tuner, which is pretty nice. The tuning display on here kind of sucks because, you've got very limited LEDs, but I usually just I'll peek at the amp down here, and it'll tell me in cents how I'm doing. So I usually just use that to get in tune, which might not be the best on stage, but whatever. I'm not worried. I'm going to get into pedals now, but for the amp I'm using to start all these pedal demos, it's like a Sears Silvertone, like a 60s amp. Fender has it listed as like a thrift kind of amp, but it's my favorite one right now that I've used. I just did some EQing on it to help smooth it out, take out some of that retro sound, I guess. Oh, it's also worth noting, it is going into it's emulating like a 4x12 kind of sound, like a Fender 4x12 thing. Where's my pick? I found my pick. Okay, so here's my clean tone. I have the compressor on, but I always have the compressor on, so I'm leaving it that way. And that's the neck pickup. Let's get right here. So we have a hypergravity compressor from TC Electronics. It's great. It just does, I just want a little bit of compression. I played with the tone print stuff, but it scared the shit out of me. So I just have it on something pretty basic. The attack's really low. I kind of use it as like a limiter more than a compressor, but I don't have it set very aggressive. It's mainly just like when I'm absurdly hitting it really hard, it'll just help it out for clean tones to not spike anything down the chain. The level's pushed a little down from the stock because I have to gain stage stuff later so it can get louder. So it's actually a little... It's actually a little quieter when it's on, which means it acts as kind of like a janky boost when I want it to be. I can just turn it off. It adds a little more gain to the rest of the board down the signal chain. And then the blend's halfway because it sounds good. I like the blend. Next, we're going into the mini glitch here. This is from the King of Gear, I believe. I might be wrong, but It's a great pedal. It does like the Radiohead glitch thing. I'm actually gonna get some more gain. So this does glitch effects. It's basically, it picks a random amount of like a delay kind of thing. It's hard to explain, but it's like a stutter effect. There it is. If you're lucky, it'll do that for you. But it picks a random amount to do, and I usually have it just on like a tap to, or what's the word? Momentary switch. So when you're pressing it, it's on. When you unpress it, it's off. And that works best. I have it set to random, but I've tweaked like the parameters of the minimum and maximum to work pretty well. Obviously, it's what is it? It's dry pass, so you can still hear what I'm playing under it. It sounds great when you play a chord and then you have it do that glitch effect over it. It kind of sounds like modulation, but it sounds really cool. It sounds really cool going into distortion pedals, which is why it's so early in the chain. It does some other things. There's a threshold mode and a random mode. I don't use the random mode as much because it's really hard to use like 100% random stuff. But for the threshold mode, when you play, it activates. Yeah! Great for creating textures, especially. I like to use it for like I'll play a riff. And then towards the end of the riff, you activate it, so then you get like a... So like if you're just keeping your foot on the pedal, you can add a little bit of this glitchy effect at the end of each phrase. Kind of creates tension. It sounds great. If you want, you can change the sample size. When it's all the way down, it's random, but you can turn it up to choose whatever you want. If I'm playing like a math rock thing that's really technical and I just want like a little boom effect that's the same every time, I can use that. But other than that, I usually keep it random. No, there's one more thing actually. If you hold the switch and go to, because the mode on the very right, with the press, and it makes it glitch. If you hold the switch and go there, it turns into latching. And then you turn your sample size to max, which is like a second. I actually saw this in a pedal demo, so I'll put them here because they're really cool for doing that. It's very inspiring. And then basically, you can get really freaky with it, which is cool. I spoiled some pedals there, but it was worth it. But again, for the most part, I just keep it on this momentary on mode, just for these cool little... I mean, here, tell you what, I'll put my foot up there. So I'm doing something like this. Something like that. Helps when it's on the floor, though. If it's not obvious, I have this thing on a table, so it's like eye level. I can hit it with my hands, but not so much my feet. Next, we go into... You might notice this funny little doppelganger looking ass pedal. It's a Behringer noise reducer, but I had it painted by my brother, and it looks really cool now. And people ask about it, and I love it. It's just a noise reducer. Unfortunately, it's made of plastic. It was $20, but it does everything I want it to do, and now it looks good. Coming out of there, we go to the crayon, which I turned on. I forgot to turn it off. This is like it adds some achy dirt on top. A lot of treble, but I love it. So let's do a demo. It off. It's about fully clean. Maybe not. Most guitarists would call that clean, I think. But if you like go on the bridge and then you start hearing some breakup. But all purposes, that's clean. And then usually the bass and treble on the crayon I keep the same, volume the same, but the gain I'll switch depending on what I'm playing. Softer music, it'll be down a little more. I just like it brings out like a really good dynamic. You get a lot of just like high-end crunch when you dig in. And it works great for... It makes just intricate lines fun to play. And it makes your harmonics easier to hit. I'm on the neck pickup. And I can hear that 5th fret just fine. If I go to the middle though, I can almost hit that. Hey, on the bridge I can hit it. But if you want like a, that absurd J-rock tone, you can turn your gain up more. And it gives you that just nasty. Something like that. That sounded good. Next, it goes from the crayon into the Syntax Error 2, which is the newest pedal. I got it yesterday. And it does a lot of weird things. I'm still figuring it out. But for now, I have it on this like chorus thing, vibrato chorus thing. A very swirly chorus. It's great. I want to find something else to have it for that like stock sound when you just turn it on. The main thing I like to use it for is the bit crushing. I need a good bit crusher, and this is what I ended up settling on. I wish I had a bigger range, because it gets hairy very quickly. I'll just put an open chord here. That's the smallest amount you can have. It already sounds like it's coming out of a like Nintendo system. But it gets really hairy. But I wish it would start a little more. I wish the beginning was more subtle when you use it, because my plan is to hook it up to an expression pedal and use it for like transition effects, basically. It also does pitch shifting effects, which is cool, because then it goes into my my DF7 here, the Distortion Factory. It's set to a Rat. If I didn't have this pedal, I would probably just buy a Rat or a mini Rat, or like a long sword from EAE. I actually really want one of those, but this works great because it's got a high and low level for EQ, and then it's got a movable mid frequency, which is like fantastic. And for a Rat, it's really needed. Just a single filter knob sucks, in my opinion. But I feel like people can agree on, for most things, it's better to have more. And Unless it's voiced perfectly already. Then it's whatever, but here's the rat on the bridge. Let me play with the settings real quick. So I use the rat as like the second level of distortion here, or well, it depends on where you start in the chain, but usually I'll start with either the crayon or clean, and then the crayon will be next, and then the rat. So usually when the rat's on, the crayon's also on. That's usually like 95% of the time. So if I turn the crayon off, very clean, very tight, not very chuggy, not very punchy, but when the crayon's on, and you can hit those pinchies or the squealies. All right. Next, I mean, I guess I should elaborate. I don't use any of the other distortion models because the rat is just it's the thing I like. I usually keep the gain at the same no matter what. The crayon is where the most movement happens with gain. If I want to change my sound for a different song or whatever. But I will change the high-end response because sometimes, depending on your headphones, it might sound too bright. Usually cleans up pretty well in a mix though. The next level of distortion is the loomer, but the loomer is actually placed really weird in the chain. It actually goes crayon, loomer, and then the rat for variety. The loomer's my weird fuzz. It used to be my primary. It's not anymore. It's like a secondary funny effect. Here it is on its own. Very mid-high range, very it's loud, but there's no low end, and that's by design here for reasons I'll get to later, but it works great as like I have one song that does like a and just for something like absurdly just gainy, but not like it's not going to take up the whole mix, it works great. There's a modulation on it. I usually have it on the soft focus reverb because shoegaze. So, and this will also show one of the things I don't like about this pedal, but just the crayon on its own. And then with a little soft focus reverb. The reverb is fantastic. For some reason, it affects your dry tone in a way that I don't like. It really darkens it up. And I've seen in the little manual, it's described as like a Jazzmaster rhythm circuit kind of frequency response situation. But the cool thing about the rhythm circuit on a Jazzmaster is that you can turn it off. You cannot use it. You're stuck with it here. So if you have a really clean tone with a lot of high end, all of a sudden, you lose a lot of that sibilance, everything from like 8K and higher. It just doesn't become as sparkly. Versus, and it depends on the blend. I like to have the blend quite a bit higher. And it's like the more of that soft focus blend you have, the more of a problem it is with it just becoming muddy. And you might notice the warmth knob I have it set all the way to as bright as it will go. It'd be nice if we could just not do that. That being said, it's very small. It's just if I want to go from a crayon. Yeah, listen to that. So if we keep it on and I turn it off while it's going. I feel like that showed it pretty well. That string noise, it just doesn't translate as well. But I feel like that's, as far as, deal breakers, that's pretty low on the list. But the loomer then goes into the rat. You can get some really cool sounds from this. If I have the modulation, that reverb, on, I can either turn the fuzz on, and fuzz it out, and it's literally fuzzed out of existence. It sounds crazy. I can go into the rat, which is less crazy. That sounded pretty good. And it works great, because since the rat introduces so much high-frequency content, that modulation, it kind of sweeps it down a little bit, which I don't like about it. The rat will just bring it back, basically, because it's such a bright pedal. Next in the chain is, I believe it's the Big Muff. This is a ram's head Big Muff, so it's not like a Big Muff Pi. It's a Big Muff Pi ram's head, which is like a V2 kind of thing. It's my main fuzz, and it's very loud. I bought it from my friend, and he gave me a very good deal. Thank you very much. So stock tone. And then the fuzz. So what I love about the ram's head version of the Big Muff Pi, I'm just going to call it the ram's head fuzz from now on, is it sounds more like a distortion than a fuzz. It sounds like a distortion with as much gain as a fuzz. And when you look at the product pitch for it, they advertise the string clarity, and just this very, you could tell what you're playing with it, which I love. It's just this absurd wall of noise, but then these hitting the string still pops through. Which, we're on gain pedal 5, I think, now? No, we're on gain pedal 4 now. We're on gain pedal 4 now, so having string clarity is pretty good, and I don't know, it's just the way it sounds. I've barely touched the tone knob. The sustain, which is, the gain, basically, is just shy of max, and the volume is louder than the pedal behind it. Now, usually the crayon will be on, right? And then usually the distortion factory will be on. By the time I'm getting to here, it's usually my third stage of loudness. So let's hear it with that. It sounds absurd. I'm actually going to start using the noise reducer, because then I can do that. So once we're at this point, we kind of come to a crossroads, because there's another fuzz still. There's the loomer still. And the cool thing about this setup is that when you run a loomer or a fuzz, if you run a fuzz into the rat, a distortion, you get a way different sound. Distortion on its own. Both. Not necessarily louder, which makes sense because the Rats, you know, it has a certain level it's gonna hit, and the Loomer can just hit its distortion channel harder. It can't go any higher. So it'll probably, you know, shake the venue or shake the room you're in if your whole, you know, setup is really loud. Switching to that, it gets really V-shaped and very. It makes me think of like an HM2 kind of thing with this just really annoying frequency. That doesn't. It's not that annoying. It doesn't like hurt, but it's like cool. It's cool. It's weird. But what this also means is you can put all of that through the big muff, which kind of unlocks this like fourth gain stage later on. So we're at gain level 3, Crayon, Rat, Big Muff. And now we can introduce this fuzz earlier in the chain. And to me, that sounds more of that HM2 character. It sounds like zapping. It sounds like electricity. It sounds crazy, and I love it. So if I need to get louder, if I need to get more articulate on top of like, you know, I'm already fuzzing at that point. If I need more, I can turn that on to get something that you can kind of hear what I'm doing still. But then that big muff goes back to the noise reducer in the return channel. So it's closed to that loop, and it's, you know, keeping all that quiet. I can turn everything on, and you can faintly hear it because that's as low as the gate goes, but as soon as I start playing, it brings it down. Then we come out of the noise reducer, the out on it, you know, and then it comes into the pulsar, and that's a tremolo. Basically, it's also the route going out to the amp. So that pedal has to be on the outside so my amp can just plug in right there. And it's just set really fast. I have a solo in a song that does like a... It does that kind of thing. And so I need to turn it on in the middle of a solo for that. And for, you know, the math rocky stuff. Let's try. I'm using my foot again for this effect. Works great with fuzz. If I want a faster rate, it does that. It almost goes to like a ring mod thing. Although at that point it starts to sound like, I guess it sounds like a tremolo, where it kind of feels like strobe lights. It feels like you're playing a game and like your computer can't handle it, and so you're getting like 5 FPS or something, and you're like going through the game. It feels like that. Oh yeah, and then it goes out into the amp. Then we've got other things. We've got our modulation stuff, the majority of it. So it goes through the amps pedals first, and then it has a stereo effects loop, in and out stereo, 4 damn cables that you can put your own stuff through. So I've labeled them here. I've got a delay, a phaser, and then like a lo-fi thing, and then the EQ. The EQ is always on. It's basically just something at the end of the chain that I go, that sounds great. That sounds less bad. And so it usually doesn't come off. I'll probably demo it on and off when I go through all the amps in a bit here. So it's a modulated, very fast, very high feedback delay. Works great for fuzz. Works great for like shoegaze lead lines. It almost sounds like a reverb. That modulation really helps it kind of make this big, awesome sound. I don't know how to say it, but it's great. Next is a phaser. It's basically like a phase 90 kind of thing. It's I use it for one song at the moment, but I plan to use it more, and it's good for psychedelic sounds if you want to. It does that. If you're fuzzing and you want a phaser. Next is a lo-fi pedal. I literally just found the Klon Centaur pedal in here, and then I just rolled the treble knob down. There's a little gain on it. Let's listen to it. So if I want a part of a song, it's like building up, building up, building up, and then maybe there's like a... It'd be easier to showcase if I could get my foot up there to activate it while I'm playing. But it's basically when you have a quiet part bridging into a section that gets really loud for contrast. It's great. It's basically like a lower in volume, but it also makes it lo-fi. You can get some cool like psychedelia, pop with some psychedelic elements. You can imagine. And then we go to the effect loop. So for me, it's these 3 box pedals here. I've got the Triceratops going into the Polymoon, going into the Dark Star stereo, going out and returning back into the amp. So we'll start with the chorus. I've got just a preset that I like. It's a stereo chorus. I tweaked some things using the software, and it's my favorite. And it works great with distortion. It doesn't like completely lose its like you can tell what's being played still. It's great for that. It's got a swirl mode. I don't really use the swirl mode. It's too much for me, usually. Whoa! But I've got 5 presets that I'm going to go through here. And I left the syntax error on. Let's demo it one more time. It's great. I love it. Next one is like a stereo. It kind of feels like a double tracking. Here's mono. It really makes the attacks sound really wide, and then for the most part, the center image, or the sustained chords you're playing, they sound kind of like a small chorus. But if you're wearing headphones, it really sounds like a doubling, which is great for like riffs. It's great for this shit. Compared to none. It makes it sound really, really good, and it's really tight. Normally, because it is a time-based effect, but usually these, when you use a pedal or a program that double tracks it for you, there's a sense of like latency, whether it's one ear or whatever, because it has to space them apart in time. This one, it's such a small amount of time that it's chorusing, and if you listen to it on speakers, it'll sound like chorusing, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a cool effect, and I love it. I love it for that. Next is a flanger. So I'm fully clean now, no crayon. So the speed of the flanger, the rate, is how loud you play. So it gets super slow when you're just, the chord's open, But it's super wide. I love it. Distortion? You hear that? It's like the jet engine thing, but it's really fast. So it's just wow, 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 wow. You get that with more dynamics. But I have it set so the louder you play, it actually rolls back the mix a little bit. Or at least the louder the input signal is. So when you run these fuzzes through it, it actually tones it down a little bit to make sure you can hear the notes, which that's a great feature. Obviously, with that much, it gets disgusting, but I love it. Next is a vibrato. Great for the more pop stuff. I think of music by Hers, kind of. Something like that. What I don't like about the Triceratops, or I should say the vibrato section, is you lose a lot of your high end frequency response. So I'm on the crayon right now, but it's kind of hard to tell, And even if I go to like a split position, that's a lot of sparkle to it. And you lose some of that. It's especially obvious once I start fuzzing. which, you know, not a big deal, but it'd be nice to have vibrato before your distortion, which brings me to the syntax error. That's kind of one of the reasons I got it. It lets you do that too. And the last one is the freaky one. It's very just wah, wah, wah. It sounds like water. With high gain, it really reminds me of like some Nirvana stuff. There's another function on the Triceracourse here. The little button where the light is, however obvious or however clear it is. But this little button, if you click it, it actually turns it from a regular foot switch to momentary. Hopefully that's obvious. And then you can use it for funny effects. I have a lot of pedals where you just kind of press it for an effect. But unfortunately, this one... Actually, you know what? You live once. Yeah, so if you do like a... I can't do it. But you get it. You turn it on for the effect, for just a little sporadic thing. Okay, next is the polymoon, which is like it's an ethereal delay, but it's got a knob there, the dimension knob, which I've turned all the way up, which kind of does like a smearing effect on the delays, and turns it basically to like a reverb. You could have it in the middle. You could do whatever you want, actually, when you really think about it. But I just have it, basically, it's a reverb. I use it as a reverb. A big, long reverb sound. It has a good, like, initial attack to it. And it's got this high frequency content that I like a lot. You know, if you use a lot of reverb, it's really easy for the low end to add up. So it's good to have, you know, I've got two reverbs here, essentially. Plus the loomer one, technically, which is already too dark to begin with, but we're not going to talk about it. But the polymoon is kind of this bright reverb. It's great for everything. It's great. I mean, reverb kind of sucks when you need really articulate, chugged lines. Like this. And the dynamics was up a little bit, so it was phasing it a little. Great reverb. Next is and I think the final pedal here is the Dark Star Stereo. I got this back when it came out, which was pretty recently. And it's just a big cavernous reverb. Rather than having like a lot of high sibilant frequencies, it's more mid-rangey, and doesn't have that much low end to it, which I think they just know how to make reverbs at this point. Because guitars are already like, you sweep, you know, the majority of the low end out in post. So if your reverb has a whole bunch of that in it, it might be a problem. You definitely hear some like initial reflections on the left and right. Left first. a little more. I think of it as like an introspective, melancholy reverb when you're doing like a. Wow. Compared. That one feels, it's like, it's more shimmer. It really is like a shimmer reverb. It probably is like a shimmer reverb. More so than I think. And usually I don't like shimmer reverbs because they sound a little cheesy. But it works for filling out this high end, and you know, you can hear the sense of space fill up a little more with that. And you do it with less volume, whereas the Dark Star is more of like, the reverb is just so loud in the way I have it set up that it fills it out that way. And then you could do them both, since we've got like this mid-rangey and this high frequency kind of reverb. They work well together. The Dark Star also has a hold function, so I can... No hands! That sucks. But, yeah, they work well together. It's just, at that point, you know, 2 reverbs in, you're shoegazing. It's worth going through the third reverb. And I kind of have the left and right sides panned out a little bit, which sounds immaculate. I have the bit crush off. The whole reason I bought it was for the bit crush. Into this. It's like, what is that, you know? What I really like about it is it, you know, I compare it to the Syntax Air there, which like instantly is like so much bit crushing. This one, it feels like it sweeps from, you know, like a 44 1K sample rate and actually sweeps from that point down, you know, because I want to access as much flexibility as I can. I keep hitting the webcam, sorry about that. And then you can see there I have the mix dialed back. It's very aggressive, and it's a very dynamic reverb, so you might scare someone if you have everything at unity and then run a fuzz through it or something. It's absurd. But it's also good that it's dynamic, because like the Polymoon is not as dynamic. So when I'm running cleans through the Polymoon, at least, it sounds great. But then I run a fuzz through it, and it's like, oh, I can't really hear it turn on because the fuzz already has so much high frequency content, and it's just not matching it as well. But the Dark Star is good for matching a fuzz tone because it's so dynamic, and it concentrates more of the frequencies in the mid range. And the crayon was off for all that. That's funny. I couldn't hit that. I couldn't get that high harmonic to come through. Damn. But that's a demo of all the pedals individually. There's some more stuff I'd like to go over. Like for instance, I left out a certain thing here. So I demoed most of the combinations with the gain pedals, but there's actually one I really like where you skip the rat entirely, and then you have the loomer and the big muff. So the big muff sounds really open and cool. Which sounds really cool. It actually sounds, it almost doesn't sound like it's getting any louder. It sounds like like the loudness of what you're hearing, the perceived loudness, it sounds like it drops just a little bit, but it also sounds like it's being blown out, which, you hear that and you go, whoa. It's worth noting that the loomer fuzz here, it's really, the blend knob is like right there. So it's really nice to remove all the dry. Oh, there's a quirk. There's a quirk that I didn't actually write down. If your gate's on, your time-based effects that are inside your gate will get choked when you're not playing. So I do use it kind of like a mute knob and try to leave it open a lot of the time. But also sometimes you just want to stop playing and everything just dies. Especially when your reverb, your polymoon, these two things up here, they'll keep going because they're not in the gate. So it just you really gotta know your shit, I guess. Moving on, you can remove all your dry signal from the loomer, the modulation. Which allows for some really cool textures if you like go through the rat. Now let's get some stereo chorus and reverb on there. Sounds absurd. Another thing is, the loomer has a bunch of these two little switches, so you can change your fuzz tone. I think it's just a filter that goes on top, and then you have another filter knob. So it just kind of changes the style of fuzz, I suppose. I just keep it on scoop. In my opinion, it's like the one worth using. And then you can really just get anything out of the filter knob. Moving on, the modulation, there's actually three unique kind of styles of modulation. There's the soft focus reverb that I keep on. Let me turn everything else off. So soft focus here. Sounds like a mixture of a chorus, reverb, and a delay. Because you can hear like a rant, 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 rant kind of thing, like a delay, but it also has some like smooth decay, and it's all chorused. It sounds great. It's very slow dive. It's very much ripped from, the effects shoegaze artists were using way back in the day. Next is reverse delay. sometimes called reverse reverb. I don't think it really matters. With the depth all the way down, how you would expect. Going full wet sounds incredible. The decay here really sets also the amount of delay from what you hear. So sometimes it's good to roll that up. Since I'm going to demo a lot of shoegaze stuff, I'm going to switch to my Jazz Master real quick. The idea is you're kind of supposed to, with a delay, if you can modulate the delay, it sounds really good. But what we can also do is modulate your guitar. So you can bend, or you can get something with a nice vibrato. Which sounds incredible. But if you don't have that, it's got a depth knob that'll do it for you. So at noon, I'll just play a note here. Kind of does a little thing. And I usually like to include some of that in there because it's just modulation on top of a type of delay. And let's do some chorus and stuff. That's pretty good. Usually I don't do full wet either. Give me right around there. That sounds pretty good. It sounds like a really modulated delay or a really modulated reverb, because it's kind of a mixture of both. You can hear it like following what you're playing with a little, like a little bend there. Works great for, fuzzing chords. If you do more like melodic stuff, you hear it. So it kind of sounds weird. Not very great, but if you... It's a really cool effect. Lastly is the hall. Whoa. I never use the hall because I like to just keep the depth knob at like middle, and when you're on hall, that just makes it shimmery, and it's already so dark from the rhythm circuit nonsense that it just sounds like a really lo-fi reverb, and I would honestly just rather the soft focus reverb in that case, because it does the same thing, but it's modulated in a way I really, really like. It's worth going over some textures. Let's do some distortion. Let me explain myself here. So the mini glitch runs into all the distortion pedals. It's at the very beginning. It actually sets the gate input signal. So you hear it right now. Sorry, let me it controls the gate. So if you leave it on, you can really screw yourself over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play chords, and I'm going to show you how you can create some like really shoegazy textures, because it really sounds like it's modulating, kind of morphing your sound when it's just delaying it over itself. And it also, since it's reading, you know, samples, recordings of past things you've played, of course, not very long ago, but it sounds like at times when you move chords, like it's catching up to what you're playing. So it kind of sounds like it's sliding around. So I'm just going to stick with the rat and the crayon for this. Yeah. We'll do some reverb too. And you can kind of tell once it settles in, you'll see it starts turning from red to blue. It'll just go blue mode. And when it's doing that, it's not detecting anything loud enough. So, you know, to start repeating again, or to start glitching or stuttering. So then I can roll my volume knob off. And it doesn't matter what I play, it won't mess up this pad I've got going, which is just, you know, I can choose a chord basically, and it'll pad out that chord in between whatever thing I might be doing. Kind of works similar to the hold function on the Dark Star stereo. Moving on, there's a cool little feature I like. So, hypothetically, I have a song that goes like this. And then there's a lead line to that song. It does this harmonic. It actually has that on. That kind of thing. So what you can do with the mini glitch, if I set it to the press and hold function, and then I do this song and dance again, I can sustain notes basically. So if I play this, It's sustained now. When I let go, it goes away. All right, here we go. A lot easier to play when when the pedal board is on my floor. But it's good for doing that. You can just sustain a note with a foot, basically. You just click it and then you're done. Okay, now that we've gone through pedals, let's go through all my amps. So the first amp is all of these are like Fender emulations of other amps. This is the Vox AC30. I like this one for Midwest emo stuff. It's got like this crunch, but it kind of lacks a bit of clarity beyond, the 3 to 5K range, which makes it kind of like a bit more lo-fi sounding. You could fix that with an EQ, but I was originally using this when I made War. I just had one amp I was using at all times, and it was just the Vox AC30 kind of thing. And I recorded everything on that. Now I have a bunch of other options, and I actually don't use the Vox as much because the other options are better. Number 2 is a Fender Bassman, a 59 Bassman, into a Fender Supersonic cab with 4x12 Celestion Vintage 30s. I researched this. And it's great for Strat tones. It's a shame my Strat is right there, but I'm not switching. Let's compare it. That sounds a little boxy. This guy can get... It's good for sparkly stuff. This is a fairly dark guitar, but... if you chorus it, do some reverby. I have to get the other guitar. Okay, so normally on like a normal neck pickup, you get that, and then you do the in-between positions. You get these really sparkly tones, and so you go through sparkly amp, and it's heaven. It's great for dream poppy stuff, great for, in the more indie rock, indie pop vein with some, more psychedelic, shoegazy elements. It does that really well. The only thing is once you start putting a lot of distortion on it, it gets really bright. So if we start with the Crayon, and then the Rat, it's got a great high frequency crunch, but like if you're right in front of the speaker, you won't like it very much. With more, I love that, but at higher volumes, it can be quite a bit much. That being said, it's my second favorite. I love it. I should note these are all fairly clean. Just a clean. I'll clean test them all later here. But next is a 65 Super Reverb into dual 15-inch D130F speakers. Yep, I used to just use this for tracking bass for recordings. Don't worry about my tuning, it sounds okay. But then I started just using it for guitar too. It's just an option. One of many. It does like a scratchy tone. It's a little scratchy. If I do rat tone. It does that kind of Avenged Sevenfold metalcore thing. It's the kind of thing if you just want a little of that scratchiness, not exactly like the mid-range thing that kind of sucks if it's too loud, or the high-end clarity either. It's kind of in the middle. The next, I've been using this the whole time. It's a Sears Silvertone style amp. It's from the 60s. It's just listed as like the Thrift King, or like the Thrift speaker. You find this at a thrift shop for $50, which is crazy because it's my favorite. It's got a really solid mid-range. The mid-range is like perfect. Obviously I changed it with a little bit of EQ, but it does a really good mid-range thing. It does a really good, like, the mid-range that sucks to listen to. It really handles that really well. And you get a little bit of sibilance for some fizziness. When you're fuzzing, you get, in my opinion, the best of all those annoying spots to get right, which I love. I also think it's very funny that it's listed as like a vintage, retro amp, because whatever Fender's done to it in the box it sounds good. I should say, I forgot to say, it's into same as the first one, a Fender Supersonic cab with 4x12-inch Celestion Vintage 30s. Yep. Last one. It's a British Watts kind of thing. It's called a British Watts in the thing. It's actually a Hiwatt DR013 into a closed back Soldano style cab. 4x12 Eminence speakers, according to my computer. It's very cool. Let's actually play it. The cleans here are immaculate. You get a lot of that high end. It's respectable, but I notice it more. I guess I would say it just feels it's smoother. Like I would use this one, and this is the Bassman, for more staccato, more music with more bite. The one, I keep calling it Soldano, but that's just the cab. The Hiwatt is very smooth. It's a very smooth clean. Like I could listen to just like just like I could listen to just like this sustain, just listening to it, how it dies down. It's so smooth. I love it. One of my favorites for cleans. I think I'm obligated to tune now. There. That's better. This one takes gain in an interesting way. It doesn't get as bright as the other amps when you add more to it. It retains a lot of low-end punch. So we're still in the neck, or we are now. And then the Rat. Now that I think about it, there's actually quite a bit of... There's like not a lot of like mid-range to mid-high, annoying stuff, but there's sibilance, definitely. Definitely like V-shaped. But yeah, I mean, obviously it does that stuff really well. I use this amp more for like sludgy stuff, heavier stuff. Like if I'm doing a, I can't really afford to do it on here, but if I'm doing like a drop tuning and I'm keeping to this kind of thing. Compared to the last amp, has like a controlled low end compared to, I don't know, I just, very V-shaped, very much that. I wonder if it's like, I'm actually not going to play Metallica because I'll get in trouble. With that being said, I don't have anything else to go over. I've been here for almost 2 hours, I think, just talking. After I built the damn thing, this shit's really fun. I'm gonna do some shameless plugs. Actually, now that I'm done here, I am in 3 projects at the moment. The first is my own personal project. It's called Night Trem, like night tremolo, like on a guitar. Night Trem, nighttime trem. It's very much shoegaze first, and then some Midwest emo second. There's definitely some emo stuff in there, definitely some post-hardcore stuff in there, some screamo, mainly screaming. But you know, I love the stuff I'm making on that project. I just put out an album, and it's like a concept album thing. I've been hyper fixating on it for like 6 months now. And it's finally out. So if you like shoegaze, you know, My Bloody Valentine, among other things, I think you'd like that. Secondly, I hate to list these. These are out of order. Obviously, I prioritize myself, my solo project to an extent, but I'm in a band called ATOMSK, which is from a show called Fooly Cooly, but ATOMSK, ATOMSK, and that's like a post-hardcore shoegaze kind of thing. Definitely like a screamo kind of thing, but a very aggressive band. We just put out an album called The Dust Behind Your Eyes, and it's extremely aggressive, and I play drums in that band, and I mixed and mastered the whole album. So if you want to see me do that, that's on there. And then recently I became a part of another project with some friends, one of them from ATOMSK actually, and it's called Skin Slicing Horse, and we have a single out right now called Bled. And that project is more like a Midwest emo, shoegaze, but also there's like some pop punk stuff in there. We take a lot of influence from like Origami Angel with shoegaze elements, and it's been really fun doing that. I've been focusing really hard on that as of recent, so hopefully that's for you. I'll put links to all 3 projects below if you want to check them out. I appreciate you listening this far. I appreciate you looking at my board. I love watching videos of people doing their boards. So if you make a video, making a board, you know, talking about your board, I would love to see it, if I'm being completely honest, because I don't know what it is. I just have a hyper fixation on this kind of stuff, and it's like, it brings me so much joy to just look at a board. It's absurd. But that's all I have. So thank you so much for watching, and good things are coming soon. Thank you. Goodbye.